United States.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's so good to be home. I first want to thank Scarlett, an amazing prosecutor, Duffy Stone, too. You know, we are blessed in this state when we have people that fight for the things that are right. And I worked with both of them very closely when we were trying to reduce the amount of domestic violence we were seeing in our state. And the advice and the counsel and the action that they took, along with a few of our other really good solicitors, really made a difference for South Carolina. So thank you both. I appreciate you very much. So it's a great day in South Carolina when I can come home. You know, whenever I want to come back, and we always call Renee, I always say Renee Dixon, we always call Renee and say, we're coming, we're coming. Miss Nancy, thank you for everything you've done and for your leadership. You know, I was traveling somewhere, and Mitty, y'all know he's my favorite older brother, texted, and we had a text string with him and my sister Simi and my baby brother Gogi, and we were all texting the videos of what was happening. And we just didn't know what to say. This little town has been through so much. That's the first thing I thought was, I said, they've been through so much. But I also know this sweet little town is the town that raised me. This is the town that taught me strength. This is the town that taught me grace. This is the town that taught me faith. And this is the town that taught me, no matter what, neighbors take care of neighbors. And so I know this is a tough time, and I know that there's some more healing that needs to be done, and I know that people have suffered. But I know if there's any town that can get through it, it's Bamberg. We started an after-school program here actually 12 years ago now. And the goal of that after-school program was we wanted to help the rural challenged areas of South Carolina, help take care of their kids. Because I knew growing up in this little town, we didn't know what we didn't have. But we had a lot of heart. And we knew that we could be anything if we just worked hard enough. And I was blessed to have great teachers like Miss Coker. I was blessed to have good schools that we went to. But at the end of the day, some of these kids, both their parents go to work early in the morning. And they come home late at night. And we wanted those kids to know they were loved and that they were supported. So we have real teachers that go help them with their after-school work, real teachers that help them study for their tests and let them know we're not going to let them fall. And there was one little boy that I asked him when I was visiting Bamberg School here recently. And I said to him, I said, what is it that you like about this after-school program? And he said, I'm not scared to go to class anymore. And think about that. It's because before he didn't know. He didn't know how to do his homework. He didn't know how to study for that test. And if we can build a little bit of confidence in those kids, we now serve close to 150 kids here just in this area. And our focus is to continue to let them know that one day they can run for president. One day they can be anything they want to be. So with that, I'll tell you, we did a lot of great things in South Carolina. I can tell you when I became governor, we had 11% unemployment. We had thousands of people on welfare, and South Carolina was the butt of the jokes. And we got together and we rallied. And by the time we were done, we were building planes with Boeing. We were building more BMWs than any place in the world. We brought in Mercedes-Benz. We brought in Volvo, 5 international tire companies. They were referring to us as the beast of the Southeast, which I still love. We moved that 11% down to 4%. Bamberg had gotten to 2.9% unemployment. We moved 35,000 people from welfare to work. We did tort reform. We did pension reform. We cut taxes. We focused on small businesses. And we acknowledged some truths. We said, if you've got to show picture ID to buy Sudafed, if you've got to show picture ID to get on a plane, you should have to show picture ID to protect the integrity of the election process. We passed voter ID in South Carolina. We passed the toughest illegal immigration law in the country. President Obama sued us over it, and we won. And by the time we left, we were named the friendliest state in the country, the most patriotic state in the country, and South Carolina may not like this now, but we were the number 2 state in the country people were moving to. And it was a year ago that I was here that we went and filmed our commercial to announce that I was running for president. And I wanted to be here because so much of who I am is what I learned growing up in this town. And you look at the year that we've had. There were 14 people in the race. We defeated a dozen of the fellas. We just got one more fella we got to catch up to. We started at 2%. We finished Iowa at 20%. Then we went to New Hampshire. They said we were 30 points down, and we got 43% of the vote. And that night, Donald Trump completely was unhinged. He literally had a temper tantrum. And all he did was talk about revenge. Then the next day, he said anybody that supports Nikki Haley is barred permanently from MAGA. Now think about it. If you're running for president of the United States, your job is to bring people in, not push people out. This is not about who's part of your club. This is about how you get everybody together to strengthen our country. But we had a little fun with it, so we sold T-shirts that said barred permanently. We sold 20,000 T-shirts. Everybody loved it. And then the next day, he tried to get the RNC to name him the presumptive nominee. Now, we don't do coronations in America. South Carolinians deserved the right to vote on this. So does Michigan. So do all the states with Super Tuesday. And so that backfired, and he pulled back from that. What we saw yesterday was he took a different approach. Now he has decided he has fired the RNC chair. He's named who's going to be the new RNC chair. His daughter-in-law will be the co-chair. And he is making his campaign manager the officer that runs the party. Think about what's happening right now. Is that how you're going to try and take an election? Then the next day after that, he lost a court case. And he went on another rant and talked about being a victim. And then the campaign disclosures came out, and we saw that he spent $50 million of campaign contributions on his personal court cases. Now, what bothers me with all of that is whether it was New Hampshire or whether it was after that court case, at no point did he talk about the American people. At no point did he talk about the wasteful spending and the $34 trillion in debt. At no point did he talk about that only 31% of 8th graders in our country are proficient in reading. At no point did he talk about the lawlessness on the border and the fact that it only takes one to have another 9/11 moment. At no point did he talk about law and order in our cities. And at no point did he talk about the wars around the world that make us less safe. All he did was talk about himself. And that's the problem. Right now in America, 70% of Americans have said they don't want a Trump-Biden rematch. The majority of Americans disapprove of Joe Biden. The majority of Americans disapprove of Donald Trump. We've got to start listening to them. And then you continue to see what he's doing. And a couple of days ago, he goes to Conway and he says a few things in his rally that show what happens to him when he's not on a teleprompter He's completely unhinged. He sat there and mocked my husband Michael's military service. Now look, this isn't personal for me or Michael. That's the problem with politics, is they're making it too personal. It's not about us. What bothered me is if you mock one person in the military, you're mocking everybody in the military. And we all know people who have served. We all know people who've lost their lives. They don't do this for kicks and giggles. They do this because they really do believe in our country, and they believe in something bigger than themselves. But this is a pattern. He mocked military members, calling them suckers and losers. Then when he was at Arlington National Cemetery, he said, why did they do this? What was in it for them? And now he's doing this. But it's because he's never been near anybody in the military. He doesn't know what it's like to sleep on the floor. The only harm that's ever come Donald Trump's way is if a golf ball might hit him while he's in a golf cart. It's the truth. But you look at where we are now. We've got real issues. We are $34 trillion in debt. We're having to borrow money just to make our interest payments. China owns some of that debt. And I would love to tell you that Joe Biden did that to us. But I've always spoken in hard truths, and I'm going to do that with you today. Our Republicans did that to us too. You go back and look at that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill that they passed with no accountability, that's now left us with 80 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. And did Republicans try and make it right? No, they doubled down and opened up pet projects and earmarks for the first time in 10 years, pushing through 7,000 of them last year. Want to know how they spent your money? $30 million on an honors college in Vermont, $10 million to tear down a hotel in Alaska, $7.5 million on a courthouse in Colorado. All while 1 in 6 American families can't pay their utility bill. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of American families can't afford diapers. What are we doing? So I think the best way to deal with that is, don't you think it's finally time we have an accountant in the White House? The way we should take care of our economy is, first of all, let's claw back the $100 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are still out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, let's go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud. 1 out of every $7 was spent fraudulently. If 8% of our budget is interest, quit borrowing. Cut up the credit cards. You have to balance a budget every day. I had to balance a budget as governor. Why is Congress the only group that refuses to balance a budget? Do you know they have one job, and that's to give us a budget on time? Do you know Congress has only given us a budget on time 4 times in 40 years? 4 times in 40 years. You know what I say to that? You don't get us a budget on time, you don't get paid, period. Don't you think it's time we finally had term limits in Washington, D.C.? Then we will stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the pet projects, and I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. That will save us trillions. Then we're going to take as many federal programs as we can and send them down to the state level. That way we're reducing the size of the federal government, but we're empowering people here on the ground. Think education, think welfare, think healthcare, think mental health. If we were able to manage that here as opposed to people in Washington, D.C. And then we want to open up the middle class. We're watching the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. We want to eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country. We want to cut taxes on the middle class and simplify those brackets. And we need to make the small business tax cuts permanent. I learned in this town, small businesses are the heartbeat of our economy. Don't just say it. We need to act like it. And then you look at what's happening on the border. It is unthinkable that we would allow this to happen on the border. And I've been to the border, and I didn't pull a Kamala, go and come back. I went 400 miles down the border. You're not ready for what I saw. Mounds of shoes, mounds of clothes, paraphernalia, rape areas that the women and girls have to walk through. When you get up in the morning, you get your coffee and you watch the news. When these ranchers get up in the morning, they get their coffee and they go see if anybody died crossing the fence. They pick up whatever little kids were left behind and turn them over to Border Patrol. I met with multiple sheriffs. They said before 7 a.m., they round up whatever illegal immigrants they can find. They turn them over to Border Patrol. Border Patrol documents them and releases them until their court date years from now. And when I asked Border Patrol about their jobs, they said, you want to know what we do? We're glorified babysitters. They don't let us do our job. 8.5 million illegal immigrants have come across that border. We had enough fentanyl cross the border last year that would kill every single American. Number one cause of death for adults 18 to 45, fentanyl. And don't think for a second China doesn't know what they're doing when they send it over. So when we pass the toughest illegal immigration law in the country, we need to take what we did in South Carolina and do it across this country. We did a national E-Verify program that required businesses to prove that the people they hire are in this country legally. We need to defund sanctuary cities once and for all. No more safe havens for illegal immigrants. We'll put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. Let's go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that no one even steps foot on U.S. soil. And instead of catch and release, we'll go to catch and deport. That is how we will stop what's happening on the border. And then you look at national security. This was another unhinged moment that Trump said at the rally. He said that he would make sure that he would not defend any of our allies in NATO if they weren't pulling their weight. And he even went further than that and said that he would encourage Putin to invade those countries if they didn't pull their weight. Now, the part of that is so crazy, NATO is a 75-year success story. We haven't had any wars in that area because of that alliance. Russia has never invaded a NATO country because Russia's intimidated by that alliance. And the fact that you would go and put that alliance in danger, the fact that you would go and side with a thug, Putin kills his opponents. Right now, he's arrested Evan Gersovich, a journalist, for just doing his job. He has never hidden the fact he wants to defeat America. And someone who wants to be president of the United States is siding with that thug instead of the people who were with us after 9/11? Doesn't make sense. So we know what we need to do for domestic policy and for national security. But we've got to acknowledge some hard truths. Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That's nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. But the only way we're going to win the majority of Americans is if we have a new generational leader that leaves the negativity and baggage behind and does the solutions for the future. Another hard truth. I voted for Donald Trump twice. I was proud to serve America in his administration. But the reality is, chaos follows him. Everywhere he goes, it's chaos. And we can't be a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it. There will be a female president of the United States. Hard truth, it will either be me or it will be Kamala Harris. You look at any of those general election polls, any of them, Donald Trump does not defeat Joe Biden. He's down by 5 points. He's down by 7 points. He's down by 9 points. On a good day, it's margin of error. He's even. I'm in every one of those same general election polls, and I defeat Biden by up to 17 points. Do you know what that means? That's bigger than the presidency. That's House, that's Senate, that's governorships, that's school boards. That's an entire turn in our government. But more than that, you win by double digits. That's a mandate going into D.C. to stop the wasteful spending and get our economy back on track. That's a mandate to get our kids reading again and go back to the basics in education. That's a mandate to secure our borders with no more excuses. That's a mandate to bring law and order back to our cities. And that's a mandate for a strong America that prevents war that we can all be proud of. Don't you want that? Because we could have that. But in order to have that, it's going to take a lot of courage. Courage from all of us. Courage for me to run. And courage for every one of you to know. Don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't fight in this primary. We all know people that just vote in general elections. In a general election, you're given a choice. In a primary, you make your choice. We need to make our choice in this primary. You know, 7 months ago, I dropped Michael off for another year-long deployment. And I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to go to a country they'd never been, all in the name of protecting America. They're willing to sacrifice their lives and their families because they still believe in this amazing experiment that is America. So if they're willing to sacrifice for us there, shouldn't we be willing to fight for America here? Because we have a country to save. So this is what I'll tell you. We have a chance to save her. And the way we do that is early voting has started. You can go to the voter election place. It's on North Street, I believe, right? And vote today. But take 5 people with you. Take a yard sign. Call your friends. Tell them at church. Tell them wherever you are. Everybody needs to get out and vote. Anybody can vote. As long as you didn't vote in the Democrat primary, anybody can vote. We need y'all to get out, and we need you to keep faith. We're going to be okay. We are. America has an amazing ability to self-correct. Sometimes we have to hit rock bottom to know where up is. We're there. But if we pull together, and if you join this movement, I promise you, our best days are yet to come. Thank you very much, Bamber. God bless you. I appreciate it.